Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Paul's Filipino Adventures. Filipina Adventures, Filipino. We talk about Filipinas and Filipinos. Um, Today, something I was going to talk about was the LDR process and processing the visa. Just so you know that just because you are basically in an LDR situation, LDR meaning long distance relationship, that don't mean that the waiting game's over, because even though you and your Filipina or Filipino husband reunite and you're in America or you're in the Philippines, depending on where you're at the time, after you finish with the process, you still have a lot of waiting. Even though you're together, it's much better. But if you're not retired and you're like a working person like I am, your wife still has to. Seems like it's basically the same, but at least you get to come home to her every night or him, depending on what you're doing. Right now, we'll focus mainly with the Filipina. Um, when my wife came here to the United States, I was kind of lucky because I actually work where I live at the moment, so my wife, I could drop in and check on her, make sure she's okay. But a lot of wives that come from overseas, they have to like come over here, and then they're kind of maybe expecting to, I guess maybe do a lot of things with you and see a lot of things, which if you're not, like I guess the rich um, person, I'm not very rich. I have a great job and I make great money. You don't really see her much still. You're kind of like at church, I'm sorry. You're at work and then you're there all day and you're still texting, you're still going on video chat, you're still checking in on her, because the United States government don't make this process so easy, as we all know. That's in the process. What happens is you go through that long period of waiting after you file for the visa, and then you get her here, and then once you get her here, you're still trying to like keep her busy. It seems like, because even though they can go get a social security card, doesn't mean they can work, because you still have to like I guess you would say they get their social security card, but you have to file for that, your AOS and your EAD and your advance parole. So for you that don't know what the EAD is for the working papers. The advance parole is so if they want to fly home, they can fly home. But with the United States government, the green card will usually come almost 99% of the time. The green card is going to come before the advance parole or the EAD, which is the working papers. Once you have the green card, that EAD, advance parole, all that pretty much goes to, it's no good no more. So with my process, you file for your AOS, which is adjustment of status after you get married, if you're doing a K1 visa, which I did the K1 visa, which is a 90-day visa. You have to get married within 90 days. Then once you get married, you can file for the adjustment of status. Once you file for the adjustment of status, then you can actually move on to the green card. That's basically your green card process, which you have to do the interview over again, but this time it's you and her doing the interview. So you file the adjustment of status, which is your three forms you file for your adjustment of status, your EAD, and your advance parole. once you file that adjustment of status, then you just basically wait. So you sit there and wait and wait and wait, and then finally you'll get a letter saying you can do your fingerprinting. You can actually have the app also that keeps track of your all your time from, just like when you were waiting for your visa. There's an app with the USCIS for keeping track of your AOS status. The AOS status, so once you get that, they'll tell you to come in for fingerprinting. So you take her down for fingerprinting, you do the fingerprinting, and I asked, so what's next? And then they said, now you just basically wait for your interview. So then you have to gather all these papers for the AOS. There's a big, big bunch of papers, just like when you did all the papers for your original visa, but this time you need to have like some pictures of you and her in the U.S. There's a whole checklist you need to have for the AOS also. So there's a real good group that we're in. It's called the K1 Visa Group. It's on, maybe I can put a link to the group. I'll see if I can do that, but there's a K1 group on Facebook which helped us with a lot, tremendously. They will answer all your questions, everything that you need to know, things you need. There's all your different paperwork things you need. I know for sure that we had to I had to make sure she was on my medical insurance. I had to make sure that she gets on the bank account. You have to make sure that she has bills and like go down to the electric company, make sure the bill has her name on it. Just different things. Some pictures of you and her in the U.S. But once you do that fingerprinting, then you just kind of hold this paperwork, make sure you have all the documents needed, and you have to wait for the green card. Once you decide that you have all your paperwork from your list, you just keep checking your status, checking to see if it changed, check to see when, and then finally what they'll do is they'll send you a interview date. Once you get that interview date, then you go, you do your interview. I haven't really experienced the interview yet. We're still waiting for our interview date. But from what I hear, you go and you do your interview together, and they just want to make sure the marriage is legit. Once they make sure the marriage is legit, then you have to wait for your green card to come. Which, from what I hear, the green card for some reason shows up way before your EAD papers, which are the work papers saying you could work if you don't have the green card. And then your advanced parole, which is her advanced parole saying if she has to fly home for any reason, emergencies, anything really, she can fly. I myself don't care about the advanced parole. Kind of makes me nervous letting her just fly by herself, but some fly, some don't fly. I would rather she just have her green card and then she is ready to basically rock and roll. She can do whatever she wants to do. That's what I call it, rock and roll. That's just a little bit of what I've experienced so far from the process of, like, you wait all that time for, like I said, for her visa to finally get approved, and then she can fly home, and then it seems like it's a whole nother waiting game after that. I was just talking to a friend of mine, David, in Ohio, and his Filipina, she wants to work right now too, and the thing that don't make no sense is, like, they go ahead and issue them the Social Security card, but then they can't work. I don't really understand that purpose. Like, I understand they need a Social Security. Like, I called my health insurance and they were like, does she have her Social Security? I said, it's on the way in the mail, which it showed up 2 days after I put her on my insurance. But after I they didn't even need the Social Security, but they just said call and we will add her onto the the Social Security onto the insurance. So basically 2 days later her insurance card came and I called and said, hey, the insurance card came, here's the insurance number for her. So for the Social Security number, I'm sorry, Social Security number for the health insurance. Health insurance is a big issue. Once you get married, make sure you add her on the health insurance within 30 days, because if I would have waited, I wouldn't have been able to enroll her until open enrollment, and that would have been horrible. So, because you need her on your health insurance when you do process your AOS papers. Or, if you don't process the AOS papers right away, which I didn't really process them right away, we kind of went and did a few trips. We went to Florida, we went to a wedding at a friend of ours. It was one of her Filipino friends that she met. I think it was one of her friends she met when she was at the interview in Manila. They were kind of hanging out during the interview, and we went to her wedding in Knoxville. There was a couple other places. I wanted to surprise her, and I took her to Florida, and we went to a Jollibee, which Filipinos and Filipinas love Jollibee. So if you ever get a chance to take her to a Jollibee, take her, because she will love you to death for that. But while you're waiting for your AOS and your green card stuff to go through, your best bet is to try to do things with them. Like if you're a working person like me, I actually have an Uber account that sometimes we even go out Ubering at night just so she can see different parts of Nashville, Tennessee, in a glance, kind of. And then there's other times where we just go and do things on the weekend, and we enjoy just hanging out together. But like I said, remember, once you bring them here, and if you're a worker, they pretty much just sit home by themselves unless there's other Filipinos or people they know they can hang out with, because they really can't work. They're not allowed to work until they get them EAD papers or the green card first. So there's a lot more to the process than what a lot of people think. You have to, there's just a lot of things to do. You have to make sure you get married within 90 days. So you take this trip to the Philippines, you pick her up, or you let her fly herself, and then after you do all of that, then once she gets home, you got like 90 days to put a wedding together, unless you try to put it together before they come. But the problem with that is you don't never know when they're coming, so you can't really plan anything, but you could get the money saved for it before they come. I myself, I didn't have a big wedding. We just had, I don't know, it might have cost $1,500 at the most. My mom came here from Yuba City, California, and she helped me with everything. That was another thing. My mother was great. She came here and she stayed here for about, I think it was about 3 weeks, and she hung out with my wife, Leonisa is her name, and they hung out, and she kind of helped her and took her around, kept her busy while she was here, so that helped out greatly. My mom helped me put the wedding together. A friend of mine, Dee, she helped me put the wedding together. There's just a lot more to it after the LDR stage, the long distance relationship stage. So I just want everybody to know to be prepared and what they need to look for, what kind of different, I guess you would call it, objects in your way. Like, it's just not easy. Like, even trying to get my wife her ID, a Tennessee ID, we go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and said, hey, we need to get her an ID. So they wouldn't give her an ID in her married name. We had the 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 wedding certificate, we had her passport, but because of the 90-day visa part, when we got there to get her ID, there was like 7 days left before the 90 days was up. So they give her the ID in her maiden name instead of her married name, and I look at it and I'm like, it says it expires in 7 days, and they said, well, that's when her 90 days in the United States is up. I said, yes, but we got married, so she's not. We brought all the paperwork, and I said, so as long as we get married, she's okay to stay in the U.S. We just have to do her adjustment of status. So they tell us once she gets her green card, then she can come down here and apply for her Tennessee ID. Well, I didn't know all this, and I wish I would have known it sooner, because then I wouldn't have wasted all that different time sitting in, like, the DMV trying to get her an ID, because I thought that she needed the ID for the AOS, but I was wrong. She just, I guess, needs her passport. So, to make a long story short, you can waste a lot of time doing things that's not needed. Unless your state lets her have an ID, I don't know if it's different laws, different states. I really don't understand why they can't just have an ID. I guess because the 90-day rule, they won't give them an ID. But what is the difference to me if they have an ID or if they got their passport? It's a Philippine passport. So anyways, so once you move forward, you get past the AOS stage. She gets her green card. It's basically called a 2-year green card. So she'll be able to get a job, she'll be able to work, she'll be able to get a driver's license or just an ID. She'll be able to move. She gets her driver's license, she can move freely to whatever she wants to do. That's a whole nother subject, though, because they don't drive much in the Philippines. Some of them drive motorbikes and everything else, but we'll talk about that another time. Most of them you have to teach to drive first, so that's a whole nother process we'll get into later when she starts learning how to drive. But you get the 2-year green card. Then from what my understanding is, before the 2-year green card ends up expiring, you have to apply again for a 10-year green card. Which, don't get me wrong, the 2-year green card costs $1,200 and I think it was $25, $1,225 for the 2-year green card. I'm not quite sure. I'm not going to talk much about the 10-year green card yet because I forget what the prices and things like that are. But you can go on the USCIS website and they have all the prices for everything. Like the visa itself was $532, not counting. That was just to apply for her visa. And then you got to pay for the visa in Manila, pay for the medical, you got to pay for their hotel, there's a lot involved, and I'm sure most of you that are going through this LDR stage, you all know what the costs are just for the visa part. There'll be another video where I can actually break down the costs more for everything and all the different parts of the visa. My wife, once she got here, of course it didn't take long and she's got pregnant, so we're expecting a baby girl. She's 24 weeks, I believe now, or 26 weeks. The baby's going to be due on April 7th, so I think it was around 24 weeks. I'm a man, I don't keep track of that. I just know April 7th is the due date, so when it gets closer to then I'll be more involved in worrying about when the baby's born. I do take her to the doctor for each doctor's appointment, all that. I think our next doctor's appointment is for April 2nd, and then I think they said after that we're going to come every 2 weeks, so that'll be great too. So I'll have to take off work every 2 weeks and take her to the doctor. But there's there's a lot, like I said, involved once you get through the LDR process. Once you are through that LDR process, though, it is a lot better when they are home. It's better, and then it's not better because, like, they become homesick. Um, they miss their family. You got to remember Filipinos, and they're just very, very family oriented. And in my case, I don't have a lot of family around me. Um, thank God there are some Filipinos that she's met here. She's always on her phone talking to her CFO group.